Verses 1 to 5. This miraculous cure is not recorded by any other of the evangelists, who confine themselves mostly to the miracles wrought in Galilee, but John relates those wrought at Jerusalem. Concerning this observe: the time when this cure was wrought, it was at a feast of the Jews, that is, the Passover, for that was the most celebrated feast. Christ, though residing in Galilee, yet went up to Jerusalem at the feast, v. 1. Because it was an ordinance of God, which, as a subject, he would observe, being made under the law, though as a son he might have pleaded an exemption. Thus he would teach us to attend religious assemblies. Hebrew 10:25. 2. Because it was an opportunity of good, for there were great numbers gathered together there at that time, it was a general rendezvous, at least of all serious thinking people, from all parts of the country, besides proselytes from other nations, and wisdom must cry in the places of concourse. Prov 121. It was to be hoped that they were in a good frame, for they came together to worship God and to spend their time in religious exercises. Now a mind inclined to devotion, and sequestering itself to the exercises of piety, lies very open to the further discoveries of divine light and love, and to it Christ will be acceptable. The place where this cure was wrought, at the pool of Bethesda, which had a miraculous healing virtue in it, and is here particularly described, v. 2-4. Where it was situated, at Jerusalem, by the sheep market, apte probiotique. It might as well be rendered the sheep cote, where the sheep were kept, or the sheep gate, which we read of, na 3:1, through which the sheep were brought, as the sheep market, where they were sold. Some think it was near the temple, and, if so, it yielded a melancholy but profitable spectacle to those that went up to the temple to pray. How it was called: it was a pool, a pond or bath, which is called in Hebrew, Bethesda, the house of mercy, for therein appeared much of the mercy of God to the sick and diseased. In a world of so much misery as this is, it is well that there are some Bethesda's houses of mercy, remedies against those maladies, that the scene is not all melancholy. An almshouse, so Dr. Hammond. Dr. Lightfoot's conjecture is that this was the upper pool, ISA 7:3, and the old pool, ISA 22:11, that it had been used for washing from ceremonial pollutions, for convenience of which the porches were built to dress and undress in, but it was lately become medicinal. How it was fitted up: it had 5 porches, cloisters, piazzas, or roofed walks, in which the sick lay. Thus the charity of men concurred with the mercy of God for the relief of the distressed. Nature has provided remedies, but men must provide hospitals. How it was frequented with sick and cripples, v. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folks. How many are the afflictions of the afflicted in this world! How full of complaints are all places, and what multitudes of impotent folks! It may do us good to visit the hospitals sometimes, that we may take occasion, from the calamities of others, to thank God for our comforts. The evangelist specifies 3 sorts of diseased people that lay here: blind, halt, and withered or sinew shrunk, either in one particular part, as the man with the withered hand, or all over paralytic. These are mentioned because, being least able to help themselves into the water, they lay longest waiting in the porches. Those that were sick of these bodily diseases took the pains to come far and had the patience to wait long for a cure. Any of us would have done the same, and we ought to do so, but oh that men were as wise for their souls, and as solicitous to get their spiritual diseases healed. We are all by nature impotent folks in spiritual things, blind, halt, and withered, but effectual provision is made for our cure if we will but observe orders. What virtue it had for the cure of these impotent folks, v. An angel went down, and troubled the water, and whoso first stepped in was made whole. That this strange virtue in the pool was natural, or artificial rather, and was the effect of the washing of the sacrifices, which impregnated the water with I know not what healing virtue even for blind people, and that the angel was a messenger, a common person, sent down to stir the water, is altogether groundless. There was a room in the temple on purpose to wash the sacrifices in. Expositors generally agree that the virtue this pool had was supernatural. It is true the Jewish writers, who are not sparing in recounting the praises of Jerusalem, do none of them make the least mention of this healing pool, of which silence in this matter. Perhaps this is the reason, that it was taken for a presage of the near approach of the Messiah, and therefore those who denied him to become industriously concealed such an indication of his coming, so that this is all the account we have of it. Observe the preparation of the medicine by an angel, who went down into the pool, and stirred the water. Angels are God's servants, and friends to mankind, and perhaps are more active in the removing of diseases, as evil angels in the inflicting of them, than we are aware of. Raphael, the apocryphal name of an angel, signifies medicina dei, God's physic, or physician rather. See what mean offices the holy angels condescend to, for the good of men. If we would do the will of God as the angels do it, we must think nothing below us but sin. The troubling of the water was the signal given of the descent of the angel, as the going upon the tops of the mulberry trees was to David, and then they must bestir themselves. The waters of the sanctuary are then healing when they are put in motion. Ministers must stir up the gift that is in them. When they are cold and dull in their ministrations, the waters settle, and are not apt to heal. The angel descended, to stir the water, not daily, perhaps not frequently, but at a certain season, some think, at the 3 solemn feasts, to grace those solemnities, or, now and then, as infinite wisdom saw fit. God is a free agent in dispensing his favors. The operation of the medicine, whoever first stepped in was made whole. Here is miraculous extent of the virtue as to the diseases cured. What disease soever it was, this water cured it. Natural and artificial baths are as hurtful in some cases as they are useful in others, but this was a remedy for every malady, even for those that came from contrary causes. The power of miracles succeeds where the power of nature succumbs. A miraculous limitation of the virtue as to the persons cured: he that first stepped in had the benefit, that is, he or they that stepped in immediately were cured, not those that lingered and came in afterwards. This teaches us to observe and improve our opportunities, and to look about us, that we slip not a season which may never return. The angel stirred the waters, but left the diseased to themselves to get in. God has put virtue into the scriptures and ordinances, for he would have healed us, but, if we do not make a due improvement of them, it is our own fault, we would not be healed. Now this is all the account we have of this standing miracle. It is uncertain when it began and when it ceased. Some conjecture it began when Eliashib the high priest began the building of the wall about Jerusalem, and sanctified it with prayer, and that God testified his acceptance by putting this virtue into the adjoining pool. Some think it began now lately at Christ's birth, nay, others at his baptism. Dr. Lightfoot, finding in Josephus, Antique 15.121-122, mention of a great earthquake in the 7th year of Herod, 30 years before Christ's birth, supposed, since there used to be earthquakes at the descent of angels, that then the angel first descended to stir this water. Some think it ceased with this miracle, others at Christ's death. However, it is certain it had a gracious signification. First, it was a token of God's goodwill to that people, and an indication that, though they had been long without prophets and miracles, yet God had not cast them off, though they were now an oppressed, despised people, and many were ready to say, "Where are all the wonders that our fathers told us of?" God did hereby let them know that he had still a kindness for the city of their solemnities. We may hence take occasion to acknowledge with thankfulness God's power and goodness in the mineral waters, that contribute so much to the health of mankind, for God made the fountains of water, Revelation 14:7. Secondly, it was a type of the Messiah, who is the fountain opened, and was intended to raise people's expectations of him who is the Son of Righteousness, that arises with healing under his wings. These waters had formerly been used for purifying, now for healing, to signify both the cleansing and curing virtue of the blood of Christ, that incomparable bath, which heals all our diseases. The waters of Siloam, which filled this pool, signified the kingdom of David, and of Christ the Son of David, Isa 8:6, fitly therefore have they now this sovereign virtue put into them. The laver of regeneration is to us as Bethesda's pool, healing our spiritual diseases, not at certain seasons, but at all times. Whoever will, let him come. The patient on whom this cure was wrought, v. one that had been infirm 38 years. 1. His disease was grievous, he had an infirmity, a weakness, he had lost the use of his limbs, at least on one side, as is usual in palsies. It is sad to have the body so disabled that, instead of being the soul's instrument, it is become, even in the affairs of this life, its burden. What reason have we to thank God for bodily strength, to use it for Him, and to pity those who are His prisoners? 2. The duration of it was tedious, 38 years. He was lame longer than most live. Many are so long disabled for the offices of life that, as the psalmist complains, they seem to be made in vain, for suffering, not for service, born to be always dying. Shall we complain of one wearisome night, or one fit of illness, who perhaps for many years have scarcely known what it has been to be a day sick, when many others, better than we, have scarcely known what it has been to be a day well? Mr. Baxter's note on this passage is very affecting. How great a mercy was it to live 38 years under God's wholesome discipline. O my God, saith he, I thank thee for the like discipline of 58 years, how safe a life is this, in comparison of full prosperity and pleasure.